Hello, I'm Jared and welcome to another Think Tank Taste Test. Today we're going to be trying a bunch of ketchup, but before we do, let's look at condiments. This is a category that's seen a bunch of excitement and innovation in the last few years, being driven very much by consumers. On one hand, they're starting to redefine what a condiment, sauce, and dressing are, so they're getting a little bit more inventive about what they're using where. Consumers are starting to look for more environmentally friendly and better for you product offerings. And finally, consumers, particularly millennials and Gen Zs, or Zs, are seeking new international flavors and bold spice levels. And they're typically being exposed to these new options while dining out and turn to the sauces or condiments to help them create these experiences and flavor profiles at home, or to create their own inventions at home based on those profiles. Knowing this, 68% of restaurants are more inclined to buy an innovative sauce or condiment. In National Restaurant Association's annual What's Hot survey, the top condiment trends as identified by chefs were house-made or specialty items, North African condiments like harissa or ras al hanout, sashimi, which is a Japanese 7-spice blend, gochujang, which is a Korean red pepper paste, or berry, which is a spice blend out of Ethiopia. Chilies and spices are clearly also continuing to be hot, as all 4 of those spice blends previously mentioned have chilies in them. Brands are starting to create condiments drawing on international or regional flavors, as well as taking homemade blends and bringing them out as a pre-made product. So some examples of this would be things like sriracha ketchup or Norris curry ketchup. French's brown sugar bourbon mustard draws from some southern inspiration. And then of course Heinz has its mayo chup and cranch and their other ketchup condiment blends. Despite all this desire and excitement around these new iterations, consumers still really want the originals. So consumers are very much looking towards these international sauces and condiments to augment what they currently have in their fridge, and aren't necessarily looking to have their traditional condiments have these new flavors added to them. Regular is the most popular type of condiment, with 77% of consumers seeking regular mayonnaise, 87% looking for regular mustard, and 92% wanting regular ketchup. So this is really a big opportunity for existing brands to improve on their current offerings rather than trying to iterate with new spice or flavor options. So they can look at things like reducing sugar or salt, increasing the nutrient profiles, or going through improved ingredient sourcing, whether it's sustainability or switching to a non-GMO or organic option. Some examples we see out there: Hellmann's has been doing this with mayonnaise for years with things like their olive oil mayonnaise. French has just launched a no sugar added and low salt option ketchup. And Heinz launched a ketchup with a blend of vegetables last year as well. To give you an idea of how big this area of condiments is, better for you versions represent 15% of total Heinz ketchup sales and is growing. Consumers are very brand loyal within condiments, as it splits into 2 different types of flavor profile. One, for condiments that have a wide diversity within their flavor profiles, like a barbecue sauce or a hot sauce. Consumers know what they like and will keep going back to what they know in that regard. Or in condiments that have a very narrow flavor profile, or at least have historically had one, and so we expect to have the same flavors again and again. And these would be condiments like mustard, mayonnaise, and ketchup. So why do we pick ketchup? Well, it is hands down the most popular condiment in North America and can be found in over 95% of American households. Cattle, which is a Toronto-based research company, found that 75% of Canadian consumers typically buy the same ketchup brand, and only 34% of them would be willing to purchase another brand if their preferred one wasn't available. About a third of consumers would actually travel to a different grocery store to find their preferred brand of ketchup. So clearly, brand is a top purchasing consideration, and as stated by about a third of consumers, but that's really driven more by the flavor profile, and another third identified that taste was actually their top purchasing consideration. The same survey found that made in Canada was the innovation or claim that would most likely cause a consumer to try a new brand, outperforming some other claims such as non-GMO, organic, and even local. This is all really interesting when you start to look at the history of ketchup in Canada, particularly in the last 5 years. In 2014, Heinz moved its ketchup productions out of Canada back to the United States, and this caused a massive protest from the farmers and production facilities in Leamington, Ontario. This slowly boiled over to consumers at large, and French's capitalized on it by announcing that they would launch their ketchup using Ontario tomatoes and moved into Leamington. A Facebook story about the impact this had for the local community and farmers went viral, and Canadians surged around buying French's. And it wasn't just consumers. A&W switched over their ketchup to French's as it aligned with their Made in Canada and Proud to be Canadian brand, as well as many independent local restaurants switched over. So all of this PR, combined with ongoing campaigns emphasizing Made in Canada, even though French's is owned by US-based McCormick's, and obviously having to taste pretty good, has led to French now holding a 5.1% market share as of 2018. This doesn't seem that big when you consider that in 2018 Heinz had 77.5% of the market, but that's down 6.2% since 2015, and Heinz has spent considerably more in brand marketing, including the most recent campaign, which I thought was quite clever, of having their logo affixed to their glass bottles on an angle and only being the right way up when you hit the perfect angle to pour the ketchup. So given the amount of brand loyalty and the history of ketchup in Canada, I was really curious to not only try a bunch of them side by side, but also see what biases or preferences might exist within my office, and to see if we were going to be able to match up each ketchup with its respective brand. This led us to figure out how we're going to try them. Now, for me and for many, ketchup and fries go hand in hand. I think the best fries, unless you have a deep fryer at home, come from fast food restaurants, but you can never get them back to your house or your office without them becoming cold and gross. So I went for the next best thing. Back in September, Cavendish Farms, which is another Canadian brand, had a campaign stating that their restaurant-style drive-through fries were drive-through without the drive. And so we used them along with using hard bite regular chips, as I grew up dipping chips into condiments as well. And both of these products were fantastic vehicles for trying the ketchups, and we liked both of them immensely within the office. But we weren't here to try potatoes, we were here to try ketchup. And so looking at the results, for the first time ever, I have to announce that we have very biased results because, well, this was still fully unsponsored. We still purchased all the product, none of these brands are our clients, but we all grew up eating Heinz, and many of us still buy Heinz as our default. And so as a result of that, our perception of what ketchup should taste like is highly influenced. Not surprisingly, when we look at the mainstream brands, which I'm going to use to define Heinz, French's, Primo, and Compliments, Compliments being the private label from Sobeys, which is another major retailer here in Canada, they all have a very similar taste profile, all scored the exact same average with very small standard deviations, and we're associated with comments like, this is a classic flavor, it's what I look for in ketchup, or it tastes a lot like one of the other ones. When I asked the team to try and match the ketchup to the brands, some other interesting things came out. Simply Natural had the highest accuracy at just over 80%. However, it and the other two better for you brands, in Primal Kitchen and Good Food for Good, do have a slightly different color compared to the mainstream brands. So the other two came in around 60% accuracy, but there were visual cues to help with that. Heinz also had a 60% accuracy, the highest of any of the mainstream brands. However, when you looked at all the incorrect errors within the mainstream brands, between 70 and 100% of the wrong answers were one of those four. In other words, we weren't really able to tell those four brands apart, with the exception of potentially Heinz. Conversely, when we look at the three better for you brands, they had the largest standard deviations, which really illustrates the range of flavors that could exist within ketchup, and also the impact of personal preference. And so knowing this huge standard deviation and the taste preferences, I decided to run a few mini tests this weekend, as I fortunately happened to be seeing a bunch of different friends and family. And so this time around, I didn't ask them to rate them as much more informal, but I had them try the three better for you brands first, followed by one of the mainstream brands, and the results were drastically different. Without fail, everybody selected one of the better for you brands as their preferred one, and when I asked them to describe the mainstream one, they used terms like it was bland, it was just very sweet. So if you're an emerging brand in ketchup or in any existing condiment that has a set flavor or has a wide range of diverse flavors, the biggest challenge is going to be getting consumers to taste it, which is where sampling is going to be such a key tactic for you, as consumers are very interested in trying new condiments and seeing what they're like, and are willing to change if the taste is right. Hope you found that helpful. Once again, I'm Jared from the Think Tank. Thank you for taking the time to join us, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Bye for now.